Many follow the example of the Six from Shadow, ancient heroes who defeated the mad god Tharizdun. Some do not, however, devote their entire path to emulating these heroes exactly. Far less committed than the mythic exemplars, who become all but living copies of the Six from Shadow, Squires of Legend maintain their own identity, while learning from these heroes nonetheless. Hello, and welcome to another video from 3.5 Archive. Today we're going to be doing another 3.5 Prestige class review, this time looking at the Squire of Legend from Complete Champion. Squires of Legend are like a lighter version of the Mythic Exemplar Prestige class from the same book, being only 3 levels instead of 10. This makes it a far less intense diversion for those members of the Disciples of Legend who wish not to stray too far from their own path. To become a Squire of Legend, you need 3 ranks in Knowledge History and 7 ranks in one of the following skills: either Diplomacy, Intimidate, Knowledge Arcana, Knowledge Religion, or Move Silently. It isn't explicitly stated, but it should be assumed that you pick the skill that correlates to the hero you chose to emulate. Overall, this Prestige class's requirements are only lightly restrictive, and in fact it seems like you could possibly enter this Prestige class after level 4. You need to be a part of the Disciples of Legend organization, but that only requires the same 3 ranks in Knowledge History that this Prestige class requires as well. Squire of Legend is rare in that it's open to basically any class that's interested in it, and it doesn't ask for very much of you other than a specific skill. Disciples of Legend, particularly the Squires of Legend Prestige class, follow the 6 heroes known as the Six from Shadow, who struggled against the cult of the mad god Tharizdun many centuries ago, and were the only survivors of that battle. They are the rogue Dardalian, the cleric Emdostri, the wizard Ptolemain, the ranger Orsos, the fighter Sinyartra, and the marshal Sir Reichart. When you join this Prestige class, you choose one of these heroes to emulate. We're going to take a look at what you get from taking levels in the Prestige class, as well as what each of these heroes gives you when you emulate them. As a Squire of Legend, you get a D8 hit die, a 3/4 level base attack bonus, no good saving throws, and 6 plus your intelligence modifier skill points per level. Also, you do get some spellcasting advancement at levels 2 and 3. If you come into this Prestige class as a spellcaster, you'll end up a level behind, but that might be okay. Let's take a look at what features you get. At level 1, you're going to get Paragon's Path, where you choose which champion to emulate. Once you make this choice, you can't change it. It determines what abilities you get from the Squire of Legend. We'll go through the options at each level and rate them, and then add up the ratings so that by the end you can get an idea of which hero is best to choose. At level 1, you get a save bonus depending on which hero you chose. If you chose Dardalian the Rogue, you get a +1 to your reflex save. If you picked Emdostri the Cleric, Ptolemain the Wizard, or Reichart the Marshal, you get a +1 to your will save. And if you chose Orsos the Ranger or Sinyartra the Fighter, you get +1 to your Fortitude save. And at 3rd level in this Prestige class, that bonus increases to +2, replacing somewhat the lack of any base save bonus for this Prestige class starting out. This feature is okay, and would be better if it wasn't a halfway compensation for something most Prestige classes get anyway, which is a +2 base save, at least one of them. We'll give Dardalian 2 stars, Orsos and Sinyartra 3 stars, and Emdostri, Ptolemain, and Reichart 4 stars. Reflex saves are the least important, just based on the consequences of failing one. Failing a reflex save will result in you taking more damage, but failing a fortitude save will often kill you, and failing a will save can leave you under the enemy's control and hard at work killing your allies. Also at level 1 you get your least Squire's Burden. This is the first ability you get from your Paragon. It's a supernatural ability you can activate once per day as a swift action with caster level equal to thrice your caster level if it matters. Thrice your class level if it matters. So between 3 and 9. You get a least Squire's Burden at level 1, a lesser burden at level 2, and a greater burden at level 3. Each of these is determined by the Paragon you chose to follow. Also, while each of these abilities are usable once per day, you can give up a use of a higher level Squire's Burden ability to use a lower level one a second time. For least Squire's Burden, Dardalian lets you flank with an ally from any space as long as you both threaten your target. This is mildly useful if you somehow can't maneuver into flanking. If you fight in a lot of large areas, this might be worth getting a level behind sneak attack progression to take a level in this prestige class to make yourself able to sneak attack more often when you're not able to move all the way into flanking or tumble, or alternatively in close quarters when you aren't able to find an opening to tumble behind or move behind them. Especially if combat encounters in your game only last a couple rounds on average, you're going to want to be able to get that sneak attack in the couple of rounds that combat lasts anyway. We'll give this one 3 stars, bringing Dardalian's total to 5 so far. Imdastri's Least Burden gives you the ability to use Sanctuary as a spell once per day. Yes, this is a swift action, but it's still a bit lackluster for prestige class you go out of your way to take levels in, especially when also giving up a full level of spellcasting, since you presumably entered this as a cleric if you chose Imdastri as your paragon. We'll give this one 2 stars since Sanctuary isn't a horrible spell at the very least. This gives her 6 stars so far. For Ptolemain, you get to use Comprehend Languages as a spell, again once per day, and as a swift action in case that somehow matters. Probably doesn't. Maybe you use this as a swift action to try to talk a monster out of attacking you, while readying an action to cast another spell. That's about it. And remember, you're giving up a caster level for this. This one's going to get 1 star, bringing Ptolemain to 5 so far. Orsos' Least Burden lets you use Speak with Animals as a spell. Another one that's not very good, as the Ranger would be able to do this anyway, as is a first level Ranger spell. No, this ability isn't very good. 1 star for Orsos' Least Burden, giving him 4 stars so far. Reichart allows you to give one ally within 30 feet the chance to act out of turn as an immediate action. If you use up a swift action to activate this, they can take a 5-foot step. If you use this as a move action, you grant them a move action, and as a standard action, you give them a standard action. This ability is absolutely fantastic. Imagine granting the party wizard a second standard action to cast another one of their highest level spells. Quicken Spell exists, yes, but that's for a much lower level spell. Sudden Quicken exists, yes, but that's a big feat investment for the wizard, and if they do take it anyway, well, that doesn't mean you can't still use this and give them even more uses of a really powerful option. And yes, you're giving up your own action, but odds are another member of your party can use this to do something else cooler. This option gets 5 stars, giving Reichart 9 stars so far. Finally, for this first level feature, Sinyartra the Fighter allows you to negate a critical hit against one ally within 30 feet as an immediate action. Again, this is once per day, but that's usually all you'll need this for. That said, it is hard to know when to use it when things are going well. Your group might not get critically hit at all during an adventuring day, especially if your party is cautious and effective, moving stealthily and striking first. So this one gets 3 stars, if only because a critical hit from a Great Axe can spell a character's swift and sudden end, and being able to turn that into a normal hit can be a lifesaver. It is situational, but extremely important when it does come up, balancing out the rarity of that situation, giving it 3 stars, and giving Sinyartra 6 stars overall. So that's it for level 1. At level 2, you get a second Squire's Burden ability, the lesser version. It works the same as before, but you get a new ability on top of the one you've already got. Dardalian lets you get a reroll on a saving throw, skill check, or ability check. You give this to an ally within 30 feet of you. Rerolling a saving throw is amazing. It doesn't specify whether you decide or when you decide to reroll, but presumably this is best used after an ally rolls a natural 1 on a save against a death spell. You need to be careful about when you use this, saving it in your back pocket as insurance against character death or character being disabled or incapacitated, but when you need it, it can have an enormous impact on the campaign overall. This ability gets 5 stars, giving Dardalian 10 stars so far, and somewhat redeeming his a little bit lackluster original first level Least Burden ability. Imdastri gives you the ability to cast Shield Other as the spell. Odds are you already can cast Shield Other as it's a second level spell. Yes, this lets you do it as a swift action, which gives it some tactical flexibility, but giving up a level of spellcasting for this just isn't sitting right. If you somehow came into this not as a cleric, then it's a little bit better, but even so, this deserves 2 stars, but no more, bringing Imdastri to 8 stars total. Ptolemain allows you to use Sea Invisibility. This is a nice thing to have in reserve, but honestly, just carry a scroll of it in case you start getting hit by something you can't see. This deserves 2 stars, giving Ptolemain 7 total now. Orsos lets you use Lesser Restoration as per the spell. Another one that you could have gotten as a ranger by now. Even if you're not a ranger, it's a bit hard to think of a build that wants to pick up a once per day use of Speak with Animals, followed by a once per day use of Lesser Restoration, unless you're planning to spend your time getting into arguments with venomous snakes. This deserves 3 stars, because Lesser Restoration is always good to have as a backup, but it's not very potent compared to what you could be getting with the levels you're taking in this prestige class. This gives Orsos 7 stars overall. Reichart grants an ally within 30 feet a second use of a once per day extraordinary or supernatural ability. If you are able to give up a use of your Greater Squire's Burden use ability twice, it can't grant the same creature more than 1 extra use of that ability. But even so, this is very potent. There are so many abilities that are a once per day use, and this ability potentially unlocks a second use of them. This is a second incredible feature from Reichhardt, deserving of 4 stars, only not getting 5 because it does depend a bit on what your party members are playing. This still gives Reichhardt 13 stars overall at this point. Sunyartra gains the ability to use True Strike as the spell on a single ally within 30 feet as his lesser burden. You can't use this on yourself, which is unfortunate, but if there's a fighter in your party, this could allow him to sink a huge amount of damage into power attack. Still, a first level spell as a swift action once per day is rather mediocre. This one gets 3 stars, bringing Sunyartra up to 9. And then at level 3, you get your Greater Squire's Burden, but you also get Faithful Companion. This feature lets you take a penalty on a reflex save against an area spell to give that much of a bonus to an ally within 5 feet. And again, this is for all Squires of Legend. So if you're standing next to the party wizard and both of you are hit by a fireball, you can take a penalty of up to your base reflex save and give that equivalent bonus to the wizard, potentially saving his life. This is situational but a cool feature, and works in the same niche that evasion does. It reflects the class's heroic nature. If it stood on its own, it would be a bad level for the class and not worth taking, but it comes alongside another far better feature, which is your Greater Squire's Burden. This is an example of good prestige class design and should be noted, putting these interesting, well-constructed, but situational features alongside better ones to make the level as a whole worth taking. So your final feature, aside from your save bonus increasing to +2, is Greater Squire's Burden. This gives you one more feature related to whichever paragon you chose to follow. You can give up one use of this one for an extra use of your lesser or least burden ability, just to give it a little bit more flexibility. So for the options for your Greater Squire's Burden, Daedalian gives one ally within 30 feet the ability to move without provoking attacks of opportunity. This lasts 2 rounds. This can be nice at this character level of 7 or 8, and can help a wounded party member retreat, or a raging barbarian party member make it safely to the enemy spellcaster behind all of his minions. Either way, this gets 3 stars, giving Daedalian 13 stars in total. Imdastri gives an ally within 30 feet immunity to one of the following for 9 rounds. Either disease, exhaustion, and fatigue, mind-affecting spells and abilities, negative levels, or poison. This ability is actually pretty solid. It only works on one ally, so it's not amazing, but it's still flexible and useful in a variety of encounters, and this is where the swift action really comes into play here. It gets 4 stars, bringing Imdastri to 12 stars as her final total. Ptolemain is able to take over an ally's concentration to maintain a spell. This will require some coordination with other party members. It can be good, but if you're the party's primary spellcaster, then you maintaining concentration on somebody else's spell just locks you out of the fight. This gets 2 stars for not being very useful outside of edge cases. This gives Ptolemain 9 stars altogether. Orsos gives an ally within 30 feet resistance 10 to a particular energy type. This lasts 9 rounds, but that should be more than enough to deal with whatever threat you're facing. This is situational, but it's an effect that will come up fairly often. It deserves 3 stars, giving Orsos a final score of 10 stars. Reichhardt gives you the ability to add 50% to the range and duration of an ally within 30 feet that casts a spell or uses a supernatural ability that affects all allies in a certain radius. This can be nice for helping something like Protection Devotion reach a little further, or maybe Haste, but still, this isn't as strong as Reichhardt's other features. It's worth 2 stars at best, giving Reichhardt a respectable final score of 15 stars. Finally is Sunyartra, who as an immediate action can grant one ally within 30 feet the chance to reroll an attack or critical hit confirmation roll. Unfortunately, unless you want to start enabling the party fighter, you can't use this on yourself for your keen falchion armed character. You'll have to hand it over to somebody else. For that reason, it gets 3 stars instead of 4, and 12 stars as his final score. So, looking at this prestige class overall, it seems to offer the most to martials and teamwork-oriented fighters. In fact, Reichhardt offers you something the base martial doesn't even offer, which is the ability to give extra turns effectively to other characters. Granting move actions is nice as a martial, but giving a wizard a chance to cast another second high-level spell is great. Extra uses of once-per-day abilities is also amazing. Daedalian is a decent option for a rogue who wants to focus a bit on teamwork as well, especially one who focuses on luck feats. Keep in mind that luck feats effectiveness is very dependent on how long your adventuring day quote-unquote is. You're going to be missing out on sneak attack though, so this prestige class doesn't give you full base attack either. It's usually a bad idea for fighters who might want to take a couple levels for their rogue friend. Orsos, Ptolemain, and Imdastri are mostly focused on spell-like abilities, even if they are supernatural and thus getting some benefit there. This is nice if you really want those spells without going into spellcasting classes, but it's just hard to see the angle here, especially since they are low-level spells, and you might as well just multi-class into those classes. Sunyartra gives some neat abilities to a fighter, and might be worth taking if you finish your build and want something new. However, not getting a full base attack bonus is frustrating because it means you are giving up more attack bonus for those abilities than just the skill ranks. That's arguably fair, and while a min-max fighter build will probably never make use of this, it can be fun for a crit build, but the problem is you can't give these features to yourself in a lot of cases, only to your allies. Arguably, the more desirable change would be swapping the places of Sunyartra's least and greater burdens, giving him the ability to negate crit once per day when it's really needed, while potentially having 3 uses to reroll an attack or critical hit confirmation, and also make him able to use it on his own attacks and critical hit confirmation rolls. That would make him a very tempting option, even at 3/4 base attack for a couple levels, and requiring 6 skill points for knowledge history. The Squire of Legend is going to get 5 stars for concept and 3 stars for execution. It is very average, and were it more than 3 levels, they probably would have found some way to screw it up. Spell-like abilities are powerful, but low-level versions aren't worth giving up your main spellcasting progression for, even by 1 level. As low-level spells rapidly lose relevance at higher levels, you want to be hitting those new spell levels as they happen, and you'll have loads of lower-level spell slots left over for whatever you want to cast. This is definitely worth taking for a martial or teamwork-oriented fighter, as I said before, who chooses Reichhardt, and for some fighters and rogues who choose Sunyartra or Dardalian, and just have a particular use for those features, possibly for a crit build-oriented fighter, party member, or ally. Otherwise, you should probably not bother with this prestige class. It is decently put together, but most of the features are fairly disparate and don't build toward anything or build on each other. That's fine, and for the loose requirements, it's about all we can expect, but it definitely isn't as good as some of the other prestige classes in Complete Champion. So that'll be about it for this D&D 3.5 prestige class review. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and so on. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time here on 3.5 Archive.